Okay, lobs are a very, very popular style. They have been for a while. And you're trying to figure out, what are the styling techniques? Like, what are the little tricks, the little tips, the little secrets that stylists know that you might not? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. And I also obviously have you on an adventure because that's what I do. Oh, and by the way, if you're new here, welcome, Justin Hickox. I talk about hair, usually taking you on adventures. So if hair is important to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so that you get notified every Tuesday when I bring out a brand new video. All right, enough of that. Let's get into the tips. First thing we need to do to create the foundation is to use a product. We want to get some volume and some shape in it. Now, when I say volume, I don't mean just root lift. I mean volume created by a bend, which creates shape, which allows for a nice movement overall in the shape. So I'm going to start with my favorite volumizing product, which is fat hair. Now, if you're unfamiliar with fat hair, I filmed an entire video about it. I'll link that right here so you can check that out. But this is hands down my favorite product for both actually drying it straight and creating volume, or drying it curly, which I'll film another video about how to use it curly because it is a little bit different. So if you want to see that video, comment below, let me know, and I'll be happy to create that. First things first, we're going to start with adding some fat hair to your hair. So I'm going to have you hold your hand out real quick here, and we're going to put this. Now, this is typically what people do. They'll do this, and they'll put that in their hair, and they'll think, oh, okay, I'm good, but I don't want to use any more because if I use more, I'm going to get a lot more texture, and it's going to weigh my hair down. Fat hair specifically, and not all products are like this, but this particular product, if you only use that much, you're gonna get texture, but you're not gonna get a lot of volume. We're gonna need a little bit more than that. So I'm gonna have you work that through your hair the way you would normally work product through. Okay, so she's doing a perfect job, and the reason I say that is because typically what happens is people, when they go to use product, they'll put product in and they concentrate it essentially at the roots. She's working it from roots to ends throughout her entire hair. That is very important to create the actual bend. If you just have product at your roots, all you're gonna get is a little bit of root lift. And like I said before, that does not create shape. It just creates root lift. Volume and shape is created by bend, and to create that bend, we're gonna need product from not just on the roots, but in the midshaft, all the way to the end to hold that bend. Now we're gonna move into just getting your hair dry. So I'm gonna have you start getting the moisture out of your hair, start getting it dry. So first of all, you obviously need a blow dryer, so I'll give you this. Okay. Now, typically at home, when you dry your hair, do you use any sort of brushes or anything?
Yeah, I use a paddle brush.
The reason it's actually a good idea to use a brush while you're getting your hair dry is because it's gonna help, one, to detangle your hair, two, to help distribute the product more, but more importantly, to start smoothing some of that hair out while you're actually getting your hair dry. So it means less to do when you're actually polishing or finishing off your hair with an iron or a round brush or whatever you choose to use. What's going on right now is because she has a cowlick that naturally wants to grow up and over and give almost too much volume right in the very front, she's pulling that hair down against and back and forth. She's pulling that hair down against the way the cowlick would grow. Now this is gonna help to flatten that out. You want volume, but you don't want this big lip of volume right in the very front of your hair. So doing what she's doing, where she's going back and forth, not one specific direction, is going to help to smooth that out a bit. Now, she's also, even though she's not tilting upside down per se, she's also bringing all of this hair forward, which essentially is the same as tilting upside down, because we know that when she stands right side up, those hairs are gonna wanna go up because you've got that little bit of root lift in them, and then down, versus normally they would just wanna lay flat. She's also, if you notice, she's holding the blow dryer down her hair strand. So this, and I'm gonna steal this from here for just a second, this is down versus at, okay? It's helping to smooth that hair out again, but it's not putting unnecessary heat directly at the hair strand that could ultimately be very damaging, or in some cases, damaging enough to actually melt the hair and break it off. Elephant in the room, I'm wearing the exact same outfit as I was in episode 2 of this 3-part series, and that is mainly because it's the same day. I'm filming this part of this video on the same day because on this hike, there are too many ridiculous views that do not suck, and I can't not share them with you. So yeah, same day, 2 videos. Okay, enough of it. So my first tip. Now I'll preface this tip by saying that using a flat iron, if you're gonna do straight, gives your bob line an edge, if you will, a smoothness at the actual ends of your hair that nothing else can create. And it makes it look even more striking and strong. And that bob line looking strong is a huge part of well, a bob or a lob. So using a flat iron, that would be the tip number one, I guess. But how you use a flat iron is very important. In my previous videos where I've talked about how to use a flat iron, I have mentioned that you don't want to bend your wrist, you want to lock your elbow and create a large C shape. And that's how you create a nice bend and not get too much curl at the ends. This is even more important when you're talking about a lob. But here's what will happen. Most people, because a lob is shorter than longer hair, there's less actual length to create that C. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll pull it out and it ends up being pretty straight. If you do it too straight, sometimes it can actually look like it's flipping out at the end, and that can actually make the hair look too flat, too straight, and potentially even make it look damaged at the ends when it's not. So I'm gonna take this, I wanna show you on this side exactly what I'm talking about here. It's a small difference, but it is a difference. So if I take a section right here, for instance, and I'm gonna try to get this as straight as I possibly can. So I'm actually going to pull that totally straight if I can, right? If I do this, these little ends right through here are gonna start looking a little bit more, if you can see this, it's starting to look a little bit more damaged. But if I instead take that same section and I go over it and I give it just a little bit of bend under, only that little bit of bend, and all of a sudden those ends look far more polished. So keep in mind, giving that little bit of C isn't just creating shape, it's actually helping to make the ends look a little bit smoother as well. Another beautiful view. Okay, so the next tip is actually flat ironing just the sides of your hair. Not just the sides of your hair, but specifically the sides of your hair. Now, this works really well for thick hair, but even if you don't have thick hair, this works really well for all other textures as well. Now, what I mean by the sides is everything that is from the recession line to the occipital bone, right? That section below that line, that was what I mean by the sides. And here's why this is important. Like I said before, using a flat iron smooths your hair out in a way that nothing else has the ability to smooth it out. The way it delivers heat is going to make your hair feel, well, like it's got less volume. Not thinner, so it's not gonna feel thinner in a bad way. It's going to lay closer to your head. And the reason this is important, and the reason it works so well for thick hair, is because thick hair has a tendency to compound on itself, and it can start to look triangular. But we wanna encourage less volume to the sides, and encourage the illusion of more volume through the temples and the top. That way we lift the eye up. Well, when you're dealing with the flat iron and you smooth up the sides, because that's gonna lay in tighter, it's gonna create automatically the illusion that everything else has more volume, even if it doesn't. Take a section right here, and I'll actually comb through it once just to get the tangles out, just to make sure that you're not gonna run into getting it snagged at the end and then flat ironing over those tangles. Now we're gonna take this iron back through it, and we're gonna put that in and run the iron through it. Okay, so there's a couple other things. If you notice, when she goes through the ends, so she's going through it pretty quickly. Now, the only concern with going through it too fast is because many people will say, well, hey, I want to move it through fast because I don't want to leave my hair under heat for very long. But what you'll find is you're going to go over that section multiple more times because it has to get hot enough to actually function. So going through it a little bit more calculated, a little bit slower, even though it seems like you're gonna be leaving it on the heat longer, you go through it once and it's done, and you move on to the next section. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put it in, you're gonna lock your wrist, and you're just gonna use body mechanics to create this kind of C with it. Yes, more like that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So what that's doing is it's just creating a little bit more bend. And so this is doing two things. One is creating a little bit more of that bend for us, but it'll also actually help the ends to look a little bit smoother. And so my last tip is about the nape, specifically when you're doing your hair wavy. A lot of times, because even though the hair on a lob tends to be a little bit farther down the nape than the neckline, people will have a tendency to try to put wave in that area. And what typically ends up happening is it just kind of looks like this weird bend or U, or it just kind of goes under, and it doesn't really flow with the rest of the wave. Simply making that straight, to me, gives it a much nicer look, and it's much easier. I'll show you what I mean. Even if you decide to do your hair wavy, I would still take just this section, all of this hair right here. I would take that hair and I would actually do that under and pretty straight. And so what we will end up with is something that basically looks like this, okay? And the reason that I would do this, even when we do everything else wavy, is because this is so close to the hairline, it's gonna look awkward when you try to get wave in that. So all of that very nape area, I would just go ahead and do that under and straight. This is definitely a trick that I would use If you're in a scenario where your hair is starting to grow out and it's starting to flip right here and you're doing it straight, just that little area right here, give that a little bit more bend. If you give this a little bit more bend down here and get that to go under, it's just gonna pop up a little bit, get that off your shoulders. But the hair that's above that, if you dry that normally, it's gonna hang over that a little bit, but still look like a normal bob. So either way, it's going to function for you whether you're doing it straight or you're doing it wavy. So you're gonna take this section and you're gonna put that flat iron in the section right about there actually, clamp it down, and you're gonna twist it back away from your face. Then you're gonna start pulling it out, and the faster you take this out, the less wave you're gonna get. Slower you move it, the more wave you're gonna get. It's about the right speed for now, and then faster for the ends. And that's perfect. Now you can see, let me get this out of your way, you're getting a lot of wave in there. Now, that may be more than you want, and maybe less than you want. If it's more than you want, all you're gonna do is take that iron back in your hair, and you're just gonna flat iron through it real quick. So if that's the right amount, then we're gonna do the exact same thing with the next section. You're gonna take that section, you're gonna put the iron in, twist it back away from your face. There you go. You're gonna pull it out slowly, about the same pace because you're taking about the same size section. And then you're gonna go a little faster over the ends. And it's gonna give you that same amount of wave. She's doing perfect. That's exactly what you should be doing. You're gonna do that all the way around your head. Now, this is a little bit different at the very ends than normally you would do when you're doing it straight. Remember when I said when we're flattening our hair straight, we wanna pay attention to those ends because you wanna smooth those ends out. In this specific scenario, because we've already gone through with the flat iron once and smoothed her ends out, she can afford to go through very quickly with the flat iron and not get too much curl at the ends. If you just blow dried your hair and you hadn't yet flat ironed it and you're gonna add some wave with a flat iron, I would grab this section, go through the section once real quickly just to smooth those ends out, then go back and twist it through to create the wave. That way your ends don't have a little hook at the end, but they still look nice and smooth. All of this underneath stuff I did straight, right? Straight under. You don't see it, but when I do this, you can see that this stuff is straight and under. And again, the reason that we do that is because when this hair hangs over it, it'll still have wave, it'll hide it, but it'll give it a little bit stronger of a baseline here so that it looks nice and bold and gives a lot of strong foundation to the overall style. Now, what I need you to do right now is watch one of these two videos because you're gonna learn stuff like I always say, and because it helps the channel. And you wanna help the channel, right? And don't forget, you might as well hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss every Tuesday when I bring out a brand new video and talk more about lobs or whatever. So if there's something else that you wanna know, comment below and let me know. I'd love to hear your ideas, but otherwise I will see you in the next video.